Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with another edition of Mutant Monday. And today we are looking back at the Hickman era of X-Men books. So, now, do note, I'm not saying that we're looking back at the Krakoan era. The Krakoan era is still ongoing. However, with last week's release of Inferno number 4, Jonathan Hickman's involvement in the X-Men titles has come to an end. Now there have been numerous rumors, including one that probably quite a bit of traction. Could be true, though Hickman himself has said that that is not the case. That rumor being that Marvel editorial said, "Hey, yeah, I know you got plans that are going to kind of bring this whole mutant paradise thing to an end, but could you, not? People like it." I don't know how true that is or is not, but as far as I'm concerned, it's simply rumor. So, 2.5 years ago, we got House of X number 1, which kicked off the Hickman era in a big way. Krakoa became the home of mutant kind, not just the X-Men, but mutant kind. And all mutants were welcome, regardless of whether they were historically heroes or villains. But huge, sweeping changes to the mutant status quo in Marvel Comics. And there were, of course, crossovers. We had Ten of Swords, which saw a lot of the otherworld politics that have been explored in Tini Howard's Excalibur. And also would bring in mutants from the separated half of Krakoa, known as Arakko. There was then also the Hellfire Gala, wherein 1 month's worth of X books, but it showed off kind of the stat. It was a big deal for the X books, and it made some even bigger changes, such as the terraforming of Mars by mutant kind for mutant kind, wherein the island Arakko was, after Mars was terraformed, Arakko itself was moved to Mars, and the planet itself was redubbed Arakko. But we've seen in the last few months, especially last month, we saw a lot of the X-books come to an end. Some with the promise of returning in March, others just ending. Excalibur is one that's ending but returning, sort of, as it will be retitled Knights of X. But Wolverine, X-Force, those are simply restarting in March. I believe X-Men is actually still going to be ongoing between now and March. But yeah. So, and to be completely honest, I honestly don't think the Krakoan era for the X-Men will end until some big name writer comes along to Marvel and says, "Hey, I got this awesome X-Men pitch, but the first thing we got to do before we can make it happen, we got to get them off that damned island." And well, we'll see what happens. There have been plenty of titles started. A lot of them were simply miniseries, such as X Corp and Way of X. But there was also Fallen Angels, which, as I recall, Fallen Angels was intended to be an ongoing, but the writer got offered something he couldn't refuse, and basically had to pick one of the projects he was working on to drop, and he opted to drop Fallen Angels. But we've also seen new old concepts kind of brought back, such as the Hellions. This time, instead of being being students under the watchful eye of Emma Frost, instead it was a therapy squad under the supervision, sort of Mr. Sinister. Hellions, in fact, was probably one of my favorite books of the since the beginning, since House of X kicked off. In many ways, it felt like a an X-Men version of Thunderbolts. Most of the team were characters with villainous pasts. Grey Crow had was long the field leader of Mr. Sinister's Marauders, and led the assault on the Morlocks in Mutant Massacre. Nanny and Orphan Maker did not have a heroic past at all. Empath was thought to be the worst of Emma Frost's original students. The only ones that didn't have entirely villainous histories were Wild Child, Havoc, and Psylocke. But it ended up being one of the more interesting titles, and sadly, it came to a close with no continuation announced. But yeah, we got all kinds of interesting ideas as well. Also, redefining arcs for characters. I really hope we never see I hope that if we ever see Apocalypse do his whole survival of the fittest bit on Earth 616 again, I really hope that it's more of a that there's a good story to say, hey, this is how Apocalypse got back to this point. Story. Pyro, long a member of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Definitely not a heroic hero. He's had quite the face turn in Marauders. X Factor, in my opinion, truly redeemed Wolverine's son, Dakin, in my eyes. I didn't like the character at first. I really didn't. I tried to. I wanted to, but yeah. But the way he was in that one in X Factor, I grew to like him a lot. But yeah, and while there were many theories about how the Krakoan era would end, likely with Xavier and Magneto once again back at each other's throats. To be fair, I think it's even more of a holy shit how Inferno ended with basically Moira McTaggart going from being one of the staunchest allies of the X-Men and mutant kind to probably being one of their most dangerous foes. And worse, she's on the run. She's on the loose. They just, she can't get back to Krakoa. She's no longer a mutant, but yeah, she's on the loose, and the fact that she wants to cure mutant kind and not save them. So yeah. Things will definitely be interesting going forward. There's quite a bit that I feel the new X-Writers are going to have to do in the coming months and years. And honestly, I'm hoping that years from now we'll be talking about 10 years of a decade of Krakoan X-Men books. I'm especially looking forward to seeing how characters who have been historically villainous are portrayed going forward. Especially with Immortal X-Men focusing on the Quiet Council. I'm hoping that maybe we get maybe Exodus finally gets something to do. Maybe we finally get to see his face turn. It would also kind of be nice to see some of the small, less prominent mutant villains also kind of get their definitive fate, their definitively heroic moments. Forearm of the Mutant Liberation Front's come close and soared as being part of Cable's security detail, but Yeah, nothing that's making him really stand out. Basically, also it'd just be nice to see more, kind of honestly, more of the '90s mutant villains that have been forgotten to time. But anyway, sure, Hickman era is over, but Krakoa continues. There was only plenty of Krakoa X books. Yeah, for the next few months, it looks like we're really only going to have X Men, but hey, that's better than nothing, right? Anyway, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.